Hi, everyone. How are you doing? So, as you may have noticed, or you will notice, there is about 8 minutes of black space at the front of this video. That's bad on me. Tune in if you. It's very good discussion. You'll have the audio, but if you want to see the rest of the video, it is here. You just need to wait for about 8 minutes because I forgot to hit the record button. Bad on me. Anyway, to the show. Hello and welcome to GameSpot presents the HotSpot. It is Wednesday, November 30th. My name is Tom Magrino. We have a very special podcast you guys are laughing at me.
I'm laughing at how shouty your intros have become.
I like the shouty intro, Sean McInnes.
Very
How
shrill.
are you doing?
You need to develop like a husky baritone voice for these intros.
But I feel like people...
Hey everybody, welcome to the HotSpot.
I feel like people respond to the high energy. I don't know. Giancarlo, how are you doing?
I can't actually hear anything because the host of the hotspot has made me deaf.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. Well, turn your microphone down, or headphones, I guess. Kevin Van Ord, you are here as well.
That's true.
That is true. But the man of the hour, Donald Mustard. Donald, say hello.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
No problem. Donald, as some of you may or may not know, is the creative director and co-founder. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is correct. And you are here to talk about Infinity Blade 2, which is out for it's kind of the, I don't know, poster child for the iPhone 4S at this point, it seems like.
Okay, I'll take
You'll
that.
take that? Yeah. So that's out this week. I've played a bit of it, and it's no Angry Birds, I gotta say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, is that weird that Angry Birds is to like iOS what Call of Duty or Gears of War 3 is to the 360? Do you see it like that?
I actually disagree. I think Angry Birds is to video game. Angry Birds is like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. It's like a once in a generation mega.
Oh,
I mean, to me, it's like the hula hoop, or it's like the frizz. I mean, it's like so. It's transcended like all media.
Yeah.
Isn't Angry Birds at this point like bigger than Star Wars?
probably as big as Jesus, at least.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It seems like it's just so we don't even think about Angry Birds.
Right,
Angry Birds
okay.
is just when there's Angry Birds like gummy bears. And,
Yeah.
it's just
Okay.
It's
So you're putting your game as separate from the
I think
genre or the game platform leader at this point.
I think all games should say that there's something different than Angry Birds. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know just from my experience of playing the first game and then playing a little bit of the second one, it's just that it's easily like the graphical benchmark for what iOS platforms are able to do. In fact, we've been running a series of videos over the past few weeks kind of just showing the different elements of Infinity Blade 2, and one of the very first comments on the videos was, I didn't know iOS games could look that good.
Right.
And I think that's just really telling about, how great Infinity Blade 2 looks, as well as its predecessor, but also that people they kind of just don't associate, graphical fidelity with these platforms for some reason.
Sure. And honestly, we're just as surprised as everyone else. I mean, these devices really are just amazingly powerful. And I mean, if you would have told me even a year ago, I guess a year and a half ago, that we'd be developing games for an iOS platform, I'd be like, no, I mean, I'm playing Sword and Poker on my phone and Angry Birds. I'm not playing something like an Infinity Blade. And I mean, we just have some amazing wizards over at Epic making Unreal Engine 3, and I still wake up every day and I'm playing Infinity Blade 2, and I'm like, how is this even possible? We just keep cramming stuff in there, and it just keeps running at a solid frame rate. So we're like, let's keep pushing it. So.
Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting though, because it's like the iPhone, the iOS platform, seems to have hit its stride with these kind of cheap to produce, get them out quick. They don't have to have the big graphical powerhouse, the big engines behind them, but they're still amazingly popular, and that's what people are responding to. You guys are kind of running counter to that. Do you see a problem there, or like, do you feel like you're missing the mark a little bit about what iOS gaming is all about?
I don't know. I mean, I would agree with you if Infinity Blade wasn't so hugely successful.
Right.
I mean, it's just we've got so many millions of people playing Infinity Blade and loving it. I think that we're just. I mean, for me, we're kind of in this golden age, but we're in this really interesting time in gaming where there's just so many games available on so many different platforms that are really high quality. Mm-hmm. You have everything from your Skyrim experience to Batman Arkham City that we've been talking about to Infinity Blade on the iOS, and even just other really cool like game dev story. I mean, there's just so many types of games, and so many even games like on Facebook, and all the Flash sites that are out. I mean, there's just so many games, and I just think that it's a great time to be a gamer, and we're trying to deliver a very premium, high fidelity AAA experience on these devices, and we've hoped that there would be an audience there for it, and there seems to be. So I think there's just room for great games.
Yeah. I think you guys announced, or at least Epic announced. Epic obviously owns Chair. That the original Infinity Blade made about 10 million in its first 6 months, thereabouts. I think they said that during E3. Is that? I mean, was that like surprise shock, or was that what you had anticipated, or?
No, I mean, I had quite a few people. We released Infinity Blade 1 pretty much a year ago, and a few people asked me before the game came out, what do you think? Is it going to be huge or whatever? And I kind of looked around Chair and went, well, we've got about 12 people here, so we'll probably at least sell 12 copies.
Right.
I mean, that was about. That was
think
about
about your moms as well.
Yeah, that's true. I guess so. Like, we had no idea. It was really just an experiment to see, if we could make something really unique that took advantage of touchscreens and create a game that. Kind of our mantra was, if the game would be fun with a controller, we're making the wrong game. Let's make something unique. And we were obviously pleasantly surprised at how well it took off. And I mean, even at the Apple event recently, we announced that the game had surged past $20 million. I mean, it's just going strong.
It's still strong.
It's just still going.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of seems the trend where these games aren't tied at least to the traditional console cycle of, all right, this game will do well for the first 2 weeks, and then you get this short tail and it's done. Is that something that you notice, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's just we've been and maybe it's partly the platform. I think a lot of it is how easy and quick you can update your apps. Where we've just really, it's been awesome to be able to support Infinity Blade in the way that we have, where we've added the multiplayer and we added so much more single player content, and we've been able to really kind of listen to the community and lots of little stuff like, oh, I wish that on my iPad I could make my dodge buttons a little bigger or move the size, and being able to put that in quickly and have people respond to it is really empowering as a developer and is really empowering as a consumer, because we will listen to the feedback of the fans and make that part of the game, and it just makes, I think it adds to that tail. And I'm just amazed. I mean, we sold just as many copies of the game last week as we did, in the first weeks of release. I mean, it's still just going. So. And
would you say that's mostly a marketing? Like, I don't see much marketing for this, so it's probably just a lot of word of mouth, right?
I think it's just word of mouth, and I think a big part of it too is there's just so many of these iOS devices, right? I mean, you look at. I mean, how many Xbox 360s are there out there? Like, it's like 60 million or something.
It's like 57
okay.
million.
So around that, and I think like the iOS devices, there's like 15 million new ones a month.
Yeah, it sounds roughly.
I mean, it's just astounding, right? There's just so many people that are getting these that the market's just huge.
Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I was going to ask you guys like how you think you've found success in the iOS market at the price point that you're at, because I believe it's Infinity Blade 1, if I'm not mistaken, is $5.99. Is that correct?
That's right.
Whereas like so many of these top selling iPhone games are released at 99 cents, and they sort of get into the top 25 and they stay in the top 25. And it seems like you guys have found a lot of success at a higher price point, at this high premium price point. Like, how do you think you guys have been able to do that? And like, what's sort of like the biggest challenge for you guys in sort of achieving that?
Honestly, it might be our naivety that led to that. I mean, because we just looked at it and said, because I guess I always just compare everything to what I think of as regular games that are $60. And so we look at it and go, well, we're going to deliver a very premium experience for a lot less than $60.
We'll start, if you're just joining us, I have just started the recording button on the video, so you may have heard perhaps 7 minutes of black screen. Sorry about that. We're gonna continue on now with video as well. Happy days. Donald, you were talking about the success that you found on the App Store with despite the game being more expensive than most games on the App Store.
And honestly, I think a lot of that, kind of what I was saying, was I'd paid some attention to the iOS games. Like, I'd played Sword and Poker and loved it, and I'd played Angry Birds, and I'd played like Game Dev Story and stuff. But I still same with like a Shadow Complex and any game we make. We are just looking at it compared to other $60 titles, and to us we said, okay, well, we're gonna charge a tenth of that price, way less, $6, and we think we're gonna deliver a lot of really polished game compared to your gaming dollar towards a $60 title, and we didn't really ever even think about the 99-cent games on the App Store, and we just really think that if you make a very high quality experience that again offers something unique. I mean, this is the same thing we thought about when designing Shadow Complex. Was we're not trying to make a cheap version of a $60 game. We're trying to give gamers a unique game experience that you can't experience at a different price point or on a different console. And I think that's where the success of Infinity Blade came, is because, I mean, if you think about it, there really isn't any other sword fighting simulation kind of game in existence where
there is Fruit Ninja.
There is Fruit Ninja.
That's disembodied sword.
But that's true, and it's more of just slicing. It's not actually like parody where I see a sword coming at me and I can swipe my finger against it. And we said that's unique and different. And if we can make that fun, that will be something unique that you're not going to get in another type of game, and that will give it a unique twist and will hopefully be successful. And luckily it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because you're talking about like putting super high quality into these games and making them look super sharp, and certainly the devices themselves are aiding you in that effort. Like the 4S is one of the most powerful handhelds out there. Do you feel like that's a slippery slope though? Because it's like, yes, these are smaller games, but the more powerful these devices become, the more resources you have to throw at them, and it's like,
I mean, it's like, because these devices, just the power is growing at an exponential rate when you compare it to something like the Xbox and PS3.
Right.
Like,
sure.
The year over year leaps and bounds in hardware is just like, it's kind of insane.
Yep. Well, luckily for me, like, we have Unreal Engine 3, which is it's proven itself not just on iOS but through the hundreds of games that we've played over the last 5 or 6 years that have used that technology. It's extremely scalable. So Infinity Blade 2 runs at a solid 30 frames a second and looks amazing on an iPhone 4S, but it also runs at 30 frames a second and looks really awesome on an iPhone 3GS. And so because of that scalability, I think you have to build that in. I mean, there's no way we're going to cut off those other devices. And so it almost kind of feels like probably PC development in the 90s where, or even PC development still, where, you can crank up the settings if you have a really fast computer, or you crank them down if you don't. And so I think because of that, slippery slope, I think it's just more you just have to factor in scalability, and you have to say, yeah, on the super new high-end devices, we'll be able to turn on all the cool bells and whistles and the dynamic shadows and the dynamic light rays and kind of all that stuff. But as long as, again, the core gameplay is fun and fast and is unique to the device, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I guess I could just see developers getting into this, like, we have this horsepower. If we don't use it, everyone else is going to lose it, and our game will look like junk.
Well, I think that, again, that just goes back to, I don't think that changes over time. I mean, I think if your game is either fun or it's not fun.
Yeah.
Graphics are great, and it's nice to have pretty stuff, but I mean, look at, like, Skyrim isn't the most beautiful game that's ever been released in the history of time, but it's doing things in that game that no other game can do, and that's why it's so successful. Your game doesn't have to be pretty is icing, right? You have to have core fun,
right?
Yeah, I mean at your GDC talk last year, I mean, you kind of mentioned how you guys went off and you kind of came up with these concepts, these separate concepts that would ultimately become a reality. But what I thought was interesting is that out of any other of the major developers that I know of, you guys make the game for the platform. You don't try to, like you say, you don't try to make a console game and then shoehorn it in with a giant D-pad emblem over the top and just be like, here it is. It's just like playing the console game. And I think that's been a huge distinction for Infinity Blade, is that it has the look and feel of a console game, but it is made for the iPad and the iPhone. And what that does for that market, I think, is great, because it sort of pushes, hopefully, other developers and publishers to be like, look, if you make your game for the platform as opposed to just shoehorning your projects down or filtering them down, like, you'll have success.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to me you create a fun game for the platform, it will find its own way, sort of a thing.
I totally believe that 100%. You know, I mean, I just think, yeah, and I absolutely don't want to play a shoehorned, dumbed down port with. I refuse to play a game that has simulated controls. I just won't do it. And I hope that everyone else out there eventually feels that way. And it's the same. I mean, it's no different than anything else. You know, if I was playing an Xbox 360 game with my controller and it was trying to say, oh yeah, we're just going to let you use just the D-pad, I'd be like, wait, what? Look at all this other stuff that you can do and utilize. I mean, that's what all game developers should be doing, and the good ones are.
So kind of in that vein, why did you guys go with the iOS as opposed to like 3DS or Vita or the DS or something?
Well, I think one of the big pushes behind it was the Unreal Engine 3 was able to work on it. I mean, these are really powerful devices. I mean, the Vita isn't out yet.
Right.
The Unreal Engine 3 will work on the Vita, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in that space.
Do you guys have any plans for that space?
I know that we have the engine available and working on it. We haven't at Chair. We haven't targeted anything specifically yet. We're pretty small. We have like a dozen people there, so we can pretty much only focus on one thing at a time. And right now, that's Infinity Blade 2. But we're always kind of assessing markets and looking at stuff.
I mean, is there? What do you think of those platforms in light of the iOS? Do you think like the 3DS and the Vita, these gaming specific platforms, still have like a space?
I don't know.
Are they viable?
I think they're viable to certain markets.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I have children, and I think that they really, really love like the 3DS. You know what I mean? And I love the 3DS, but I think. Because like I want my Zelda, I want my Mario, I want my Nintendo stuff, and so I think there's certain segments of it, but I think it's definitely tough. I mean, I think the fight for your pocket is a really viable war, and I have room in my pocket for one thing.
Yeah,
and I definitely am getting used to this one device that I can do all my email, do all my internet, do my gaming, do my media consumption, my music, and that's and a phone too. But you know, I mean,
when you need that phone.
Yeah, but it's getting tough to compete with that, and so I'd want my Vita to do all that too.
I mean, that's kind of interesting because it seems like the popular conception for so long was that the hardcore games are on, say, the Vita or these dedicated gaming devices. It seems like Infinity Blade should be on that game in the traditional model, but maybe they work better for kids or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Vita is pretty. I mean, there's some good stuff. I mean, like I love like the 3DS does some really cool stuff, and the Vita, when I've had a chance to play with it, I mean, having two sticks and having that cool touchpad on the back with some of the buttons there's some really unique stuff I think you could do with that device. I mean, I think that you could make some really interesting games, like for example, I mean, imagine Shadow Complex, where you could have all the fidelity of the stick movement, you could have the nice feeling of a touch button when you jump, but you could, or any sort of like first person shooter, but imagine like kind of aiming with that back kind of touchpad. I mean, you could do some really cool, unique stuff with that, and so I think there's an opportunity to make some really cool games on those devices. Then the question is just, is a device like that viable in the marketplace? Yeah,
I mean, what would make it more what would make it more attractive for you guys? Either one, Vita or 3DS.
Well, they're already attractive. I mean, as a game designer, they're attractive to me just because you could do cool stuff with it.
Or I guess, what would Sony or Nintendo need to do with their system to make it more attractive than the iOS?
Have lots of devices out there.
Yeah.
Have lots of people buy it, so that that's a viable place to make games.
A built-in audience like the iPhone.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
That certainly helps.
I mean, so much of the iPhone seems to me to just be that ecosystem of the App Store too. I mean, I know that Apple has gotten in trouble in the past for not really being able to promote stuff properly, or just there's a lot of junk. Some of the great stuff just gets pushed down too fast, or things like that. But the fact is, it's this persistent store that's always there. If you're bored, you can just jump on and, buy something. And I just feel like Nintendo and, hopefully Sony, address this with the Vita, whatever form their store takes. It's just that make it easy just to hop on and buy something. Like, I mean, the Wii's online store is a disaster in terms of navigating it and finding things quickly or finding what you like quickly. And the 3DS obviously isn't that much different. It's just there's just a different type of philosophy of the way that software should be presented. And I think so much of gaming success on that platform has been the App Store, and just it's like, I mean, everything has basically shelf life forever. As long as your game can be found in search, it has infinite shelf life, and that's great.
Well, then let me ask about other mobile platforms. I mean, the thing that I hear all the time about say Android is that it's not a centralized device, and therefore you're actually not just creating for the OS, but you're actually creating for a variety of devices that have to be accounted for. Have you thought about Android or say, oh my God, I have a Windows 7 phone, believe it or not? But
Me too. I have one too.
Yeah, I know. I convinced you. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are other OSs and devices out there, and I wonder, have those been under consideration, and as part of the reason you haven't gone there because of the way the platforms are segmented like that?
I think that's a part. I mean, we definitely want our games to be available to as many gamers as possible. Like if I could just push a button and Infinity Blade would be on every device, I would push that button. I mean, there's no reason not to put the game everywhere. With Android specifically, the engine works great there. There's been several developers who have licensed Unreal Engine 3 from us and have made great games for the Android devices. The fracturing isn't, I mean, Infinity Blade is available on a lot of different iOS devices, and there's enough testing and kind of overhead there that the fracturing doesn't really worry us too much. It's more the business environment. I mean, it's just not quite right for us yet. There's still I don't know. There's just a lot of kind of piracy is a huge issue.
Oh right.
And and not that it's not piracy on the iOS as well, but it's so minimal compared to how much there is on Android, and we're totally confident that Google will kind of figure that all out and figure the store out and make it a viable place for developers to make games. It's just not quite there yet, but when it's there, we'll definitely be there.
And I'm sure then your next project will be a Windows 7 phone project.
I would love for it to be.
Very diplomatic, sir.
Yes.
Should we talk a bit about the game itself, Infinity Blade 2? I feel like we should. Maybe a little bit. So, yeah, this is the second one in the series, obviously. Is there an expectation that people played the first one when you're going into making the second one?
This is Chair's first sequel that we've ever done, and
right.
And
because
so,
Shadow Complex 2 has not been announced at all.
This is the first sequel that we've ever shipped.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think going into that, we definitely want to craft a game that that delivers on the expectations of the millions of people that have played the first one and are excited for the second one, but is also accessible enough that lots of new people can pick it up as well. And so that's a tricky balance, and I guess it remains to be seen whether we hit that or not. I think we have. I mean, I think I'm really proud of Infinity Blade 2. I think that it's really allowed us to, in deciding to do a sequel, I'm sure, I don't know how many people will believe me when I say this, but the truth is we didn't look at it and go, oh, we could make more money.
Right.
We looked at it and said, do we have...
In addition to making a bunch more money.
No, that's not true. I mean, we look at it and go, because for us, we're like, man, we only have X amount of years left on planet Earth, and we have this huge list of stuff we want to do. So our time is, valuable. How many games can we make in that time? And so for us, it's more, do we think we have more to say in this genre? Do we think that there's more we could do to push the gameplay forward and refine that experience? And we thought that we did. We thought that we could take what was really cool about the first Infinity Blade and really embed that in a more defined, more epic experience that really just is what we consider the current benchmark of what a handheld game could be on a mobile device. And so that's why we pushed to do it.
How much of that decision is yours as opposed to Epic's?
Epic is so awesome. Yeah. I have never met anyone at Epic that isn't like one of the most brilliant people ever. And one of the key reasons why we allowed ourselves to be acquired by them was because they said that they would really give us the freedom to do what we wanted to do. And we've been, part of Epic for almost 4 years now, and they've totally held true to that. They've really allowed us to do what we want. The closest we ever got to hey, you guys should do something like this was the decision to make Infinity Blade, where they said, hey, we've got the engine working on these iOS devices. It's incredible.
Wouldn't it be cool, guys? Hey,
we need a flagship game. Do you guys want to do it?
Yeah.
We kind of had like first right, like, would you guys want to do it? And we're like, you know what? I've been playing Sword and Poker. I've been playing this stuff, and I'm like, I think we have a really killer idea. We'd like to try it. But even that, it was our game. We drove the whole thing, but Epic's a great support. I mean, there's no way we could have made Infinity Blade without the resources of Epic, and it's really cool because basically I have the advantage of a really small, tight-knit team where I've got these, 12 people. We've worked together for a decade. It's like this little tight-knit ninja family. And but at any time I can pool the larger resources of Epic for their testing, for their artists, for their design feedback. I mean, it's incredible. So we're lucky.
So as you said, this is your first sequel. What do you think there's a difference building a franchise on the iOS as compared to, say, Xbox Live or a console title in some way? Is there any kind of difference there?
Again, if there is, I'm too naive to know it. We just look at it and say, with the first Infinity Blade, so even though we had the game idea for Infinity Blade kind of after Shadow Complex, the story for Infinity Blade is something that we've been working on for a few years. And we looked at Infinity Blade and said, oh, we have this awesome kind of fantasy idea. Let's seed that in Infinity Blade. And it's kind of like, if The Hobbit is kind of the prelude to the Lord of the Rings, Infinity Blade would be like the first prelude chapter to The Hobbit, to the Lord of the Rings, of this kind of bigger thing that we want to do. And we just kind of knew what we wanted to do. We seeded a little bit of a story in there, and just in case it took off. And now that it has, we're like, okay, cool. Let's
get Brandon Sanderson in here.
Let's get Brandon Sanderson and do this, you know? And so,
I mean, is that weird? I'd imagine the book is going to cost more than the game itself.
Well, the book is out. The book is $2.99.
Oh,
so it's not
the same.
Yeah, it's like it's $2.99. So it's not as much as the game.
Oh no, sorry.
And the book is no. I mean, that was like. You don't understand.
You're like, this guy wrote Wheel of Time. He finished up for Robert Jordan.
I know. No, I'm like sitting there in the shower one day, and I'm like, oh man, I just finished reading Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, which is like the greatest book I've ever read, and I'm like, I gotta work with this guy. I gotta figure out a way to like work with this guy somehow. And I did. I basically started stalking him on the internet. I'm like, gotta track this guy down.
And it's like after the restraining order, you explained who you were.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, okay, this is fine. I guess we'll do this.
No,
was that all Chair, or did Epic have a hand in that, or how did that even come together?
No, well, we'd worked with Orson Scott Card in the past, and they had the same publisher at Tor. So I knew some people at Tor. I'd called them, and they're like, no. We know what we know that you're going to try and get him to work on something with you guys, and he's too busy doing Wheel of Time. You can't bother him. So I'm like, so I went a different route, and I actually tracked down the illustrator that had drawn some of the maps for his books.
Okay.
I found him on Facebook, happened to know him, and convinced him to give me Brandon Sanderson's phone number.
See, people, this is how things get done. Take advice.
And I called him up, and he answered. I can't believe he answered his phone. And I'm like, hey, I know you're so busy, but you gotta eat. Let me take you out to dinner.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take you anywhere you want in the world. He's like, I like Olive Garden. I'm like,
that's fair. That is very fair.
So I took him to Olive Garden, and like over like a 3-hour dinner, I like just pitched him and like tried, and he's a super nice guy and a huge gamer.
Oh, really?
And so he's like, yeah, I'd love to kind of help out. And he wrote us this amazing book. But even better than the book, he helped us write this very definitive, amazing story Bible that I now have that just lays out the entire franchise. And it's awesome. Yeah. So it was a dream come true to work with this guy. He's incredible.
That's pretty cool. God, what else? So you guys... what do you guys feel like you did really well this time around that you kind of missed the first time?
I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the first Infinity Blade. I mean, the thing with that though is, I mean, in making Infinity Blade, it was like running at a brick wall 1,000 miles an hour. We knew we had for like 5 months to make this game. We were doing it on technology that never shipped on this platform. We'd never made an iOS game. And so we really just said, we're going to strip this game down to just its core essence of fun. And then just the very basic sword fighting structured in this kind of unique structure that we embedded it into. And we just left everything else out. And so the big thing with Infinity Blade 2 is along the way, we had ideas of where we could kind of expand it. And after the fact, doing all the downloadable content that we gave away, we had lots more ideas. We're like, oh man, we could really embed this into a much bigger experience and really expand the combat and make it much more customizable with a forging system. And I think just laying that core fun combat into a much bigger kind of meta system or meta game is just really cool and really allows Infinity Blade to shine as the game it should be.
Yeah.
Well, and something that you should talk about, because it's something when we were talking about it for the preview, I was just kind of floored because it's just kind of genius is the way you guys are handling multiplayer for Infinity Blade 2.
Yeah, no, we're well, again, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. I mean, we really strongly believe in looking at the device you're making a game for and making unique things for it. And we spent a lot of time on Infinity Blade 1 making a head-to-head multiplayer game, and it was really fun. And we still have thousands and thousands of people playing it every day who love the kind of more traditional multiplayer that's synchronous. You got to match up and do that stuff. But I don't know that that's how we really use our phones. I mean, it is more very short session, 2 minutes at a time or 5 minutes at a time, and it takes 5 minutes just to find someone to play a match with. That's not how we use these things. And so we came up with the idea of clash mobs. And the idea behind it is that we wanted to create these massively social events where every day or every week there'd be some big challenge. And the example that we're using is that imagine there's we have these new big 25-foot monsters. Imagine there's one of those and it's going to be available to fight for 12 hours. And it's going to have 20 million hit points. And you're going to get one 30-second chance to fight this guy. And whatever damage you do in that 30-second period is persistent. And so the next person that comes up, he'll have, let's say you did 10,000 hit points of damage, he'll have 10,000 less. And if collectively a couple 100,000 of you, or however many it takes, can take down this monster before it runs away, everyone who participated in the challenge will get some rare weapon or gem. And I think that that's just a way we can have these really unique multiplayer experiences that are different than, again, what you'd experience playing Call of Duty on your Xbox 360. And I think that is exciting to me as a consumer and as a game designer, that we can try and create different experiences than what you're used to experiencing. And so that's what it's not in at launch. It's the kind of the core campaign. But that's what we're working on now. Now that the game's finished, we're going right into clash mobs, and it will be available, early next year for free. So it's gonna be cool.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of technology specific to the iPhone that lets you do that?
We're writing all sorts of really cool proprietary stuff that allows us to do that.
That's fun. Is there anything that like you guys need Apple to do, or you've been beating down the door for them to do?
Again, being part of Epic is I have this resource of this amazing engine technology team that are just like the smartest people ever. And we just say, hey, it would be really cool if we could do this and this and this and this. And we just kind of kick it over to them. And it comes back a few months later and works.
Yeah. So I guess all that functionality is up to the developer. Is that fair? I mean, is there anything that Apple like enables you guys to do, or you would like them to allow you to do?
iOS 5 is really, really awesome. I mean, them putting like iCloud. iCloud is a huge thing that we're taking advantage of already in Infinity Blade 2, just with being able to sync between multiple devices and have your save files carry across. And we are using some of the iCloud functionality for the Clash Mob stuff. I mean, it really opens things up. I think one of the other cool things with iOS 5 is incremental downloads. So when we updated Infinity Blade, the first game, let's say it was, I don't remember how big Infinity Blade was, but it's like 500 megabytes. And when you put in multiplayer, you have to re-download the entire 500 megabytes, and it's slow and a pain. Whereas now with iOS 5, if we add a new enemy or some new swords and it's 10 megabytes, that's all you have to download. I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff Apple's always putting in there to make it more seamless and faster, and they're great at that stuff.
Do you feel like they're finally starting to, support games more, or is this just something that they're like anybody can use this and it works well across platforms?
I mean, I don't ever want to put words in Apple's
Right.
mouth, but it seems to me like they're just all about really great user experiences, whether that's with a game or with email or anything. And so I think they're just always looking at how they can make a better user experience, and that happens to translate to a lot of niceties for game developers.
If there's nothing else, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about in Infinity Blade?
Well, I think it's interesting, having played the second one for a little bit, is just how, the story starts off almost right away. I mean,
Yeah.
you just realize, wow, there's much more character interaction here. The character's much more fleshed out. There's much more stuff going on. I think it's just an interesting contrast to the first game, where I think people took some kind of enjoyment out of the fact that you had to fill in the blanks on your own a little bit, and they all kind of came up with their own version of what was going on and things like that. But I do like that, the universe, at least at the beginning, seems like it's getting more in depth and things like that. And
Well, you have to let me know what you think when you finish it, because we definitely didn't want to totally remove that. We wanted to give some more plot, more character development, but while also fleshing out the universe, still leave a lot of that kind of mystery there. So we'll kind of answer some questions early on in the game, and I think that, I don't know, let me know what you think by the time you play through it, but hopefully there's still enough of that going on where you're like, what's kind of happening and what's going on here? And there's a lot more going on than we certainly tell you about, and so because we want to foster that those ideas of people either trying to figure out what's going on, because there are answers. We really know what every stone and every picture on the wall means, but we want you guys to try and figure it out.
yeah, I will say that there are some WTF moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty.
Always integral for a good game,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's going to wrap up our discussion of Infinity Blade 2. It's out Thursday, December 1st. Is that right?
That's right.
$5.99?
$6.99.
$6.99. Excuse me. It's more expensive than I thought. Jesus Christ. No, I played it too, and it was pretty cool. But we are going to move on to news, a little bit of news. And this kind of gets back to the whole Angry Birds discussion a little bit over the week. Angry Birds developer Rovio, it emerged that they had turned down a acquisition offer from Zynga for $2.25 billion. The specifics of it weren't entirely illuminated, but it seemed to be due to Zynga's corporate culture. They, as reported by New York Times, Zynga is kind of is developing this reputation of working their developers to the bone, enacting stressful deadlines, overbearing managers, whatever that means. But as it relates to Chair Entertainment, as not to put you on the spot here,
I want to hear what you guys think.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious. When you guys were acquired by Epic, what was the? You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but what were the big things that you were like, okay, if we were going to be bought, this is what needs to happen? Or what were the big selling points?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on why you want to be acquired, right? I mean, if we were looking to just be acquired and then, the kind of core founders of the company, myself and my brother Jeremy and Ryan Holmes started the company with us, if we were just looking to just do that and retire, we would have had a whole different kind of set of parameters. But we were looking at it more as, where strategically did we want to go as a developer? And, and we... Epic wasn't the only company trying to acquire us at the time. We had lots of the bigger publishers and some first parties, and that were kind of looking at us, and we were looking at it more as again, where did we want to go as a developer, and what kind of games did we want to make, and what kind of strategically did we need to make the kind of games we wanted to make. And Epic was like a dream opportunity to be able to be acquired by an independent developer who has their own technology, but has the clout in the industry and kind of the resources to be able to kind of mark their own path. And that really kind of meshed well with our culture of wanting to do unique, compelling stuff. And so it was really a no-brainer that we, and again, we've never even looked back. I mean, it was the best decision we've ever made. So, but that might be very different than another company. I think we were kind of a unique case.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of these, especially on the developers who are working on iOS, it seems like their fundamental, like the thing that they want is creativity and the ability to create what they want. Otherwise, I mean, these are very talented people, so it's like if they wanted to sell out, they could just go work for EA or Activision or something, be part of these big corporations in which, you know, they're laboring, slaving away on who knows what, another BioWare game or something, Mass Effect, not another Dragon
Jeez.
Age 2. There you go. But I guess it's just kind of interesting that Zynga would even try to buy a company like this. Do you guys?
I mean, I've been reading a lot about Zynga's supposed corporate culture and just that it sounds like they basically throw all of their employees into a furnace and, you know, whip them with chains and all this other stuff. And, you know, part of me wonders how much of that actually just comes from disgruntled employees that are willing to talk to the media and basically be like, here's why it sucks. I mean, that's usually the case with a lot of things that, you know, the negative stuff is what gets the attention. You don't, I mean, people saying, yeah, Zynga's a great place to work isn't a newsworthy item, you know? So I think there's a lot of that going on. You know, I don't have my doubts that there's some weird shenanigans that happen there, you know, based upon the type of games that they put out. But, you know, I don't know. It's always hard to tell. And, you know.
Yeah. Donald, as someone kind of on the inside, I guess, do you still feel like, or do you hear stories about, and you don't have to be specific, do you still feel like because I know the gaming industry for a while had this reputation of just, you know, slaving people. Is that still an issue, do you feel?
You know, again, I might have to claim some naivety here because Epic has a pretty strong culture of not crunching. That being said, we still crunch quite a bit just because we're really passionate about our games. I mean, like for Infinity Blade 2, we really wanted to make it and we really wanted to get it out this year, which meant we've kind of had to kill ourselves the last few months making the game. But it wasn't because anyone said we needed to.
Forced you to?
Or forced us to. It was because we sat down as a team and said we could either take this much more time to make the game or we could cut these features. And we said, well, we don't want to cut these features and we want the game to be here, so we're going to do it together and we're going to do it as a team, which means everyone's bought in and we all like, we're doing it and we probably won't do it again, but you know, but we did it
until the next game is at the same point.
Well, no, but it was worth it for us, and I think that would be way different if someone was like, you must do this or else you won't have a paycheck, or I don't know. I mean, that's just not our culture at all, and I feel sorry for anyone if they're in that culture. I just don't see that as realistic, though, that's really happening in the industry, or at least not in the United States, right? I mean, it's just go get a job somewhere else.
That's what the third world countries, the Uzbekis, do.
I don't think that's even happening there. I just don't think it's realistic. I mean, and you look at, I mean, even Zynga, I haven't worked there. I don't really know anyone from there, but I see that their games, every game they release seems more like a game and seems like it's better, and it seems like they're hiring good designers, and I don't think those people would be going there if it was some backwards slave pit company or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the people that they've hired over just even the past year or 2 years is pretty incredible. I mean, these are like, a lot of these guys are former Command and Conquer guys, and
Brian Reynolds, who did Rise of Nations.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's no shortage of immense talent at that place, and it's silly to just kind of blow Zynga off as just this, you know, slave driver company when they have veterans there who know what it's like to make a game.
And who would presumably say, no, this is lame, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
Well, I have a developer friend who said that at that point, like, the two hot places to go were Zynga and Treon Worlds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
Treon does Rift?
For Rift, right?
Yeah. So when you said crunch, I mean, we hear that a lot, and I don't know if we actually have a good... What does that mean? What does crunch mean?
Well, again, it probably means different things for everybody. I think it even means different things within the different Epic organizations. But for us, I mean, I don't know how technical you want to get, but for us, I'll just break it down. We consider a normal work week, we call it 5 by 8s. You work 8 hours a day for 5 days, right? When we go into crunch, we go to 5 by 10s. So even that, like, that's not crazy, right? I mean,
I work 5 by 10s.
Yeah, most people in this world work 5 by 10s, right? So I mean, it's not but we still officially call that crunch. And at that point, we're bringing in lunch for people. We're bringing in meals. We're like, when it gets really crazy, we go to 5x12s, which again, it's like, really? I mean, that's not. And then on top of that, like when you're shipping a game and you're like locking everything down, that's when we just go to everyone's on call, and so it's like if on Saturday the build doesn't work right and there's some bug, it's like, okay, no, we're in fixing it or we're doing whatever. But, and so, yeah, so Infinity Blade 2, we considered it heavy crunch that pretty much through all of September and October, we were working 5x10s, and all through November, we were working 5x12s, which isn't horrible.
Yeah.
But that's what we consider a lot of crunch.
Yeah.
And we try to mitigate that because we want our guys to be fresh. We want them to be creative.
Exactly.
And we want to mitigate this culture of creativity instead of, because when you get really, really tired, you stop making good decisions. And it's always more costly to make a bad decision than a good decision.
Definitely. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to get off this dangerous topic and kind of get into the back portion of the show. 10 years ago, this week in reviews. This is a segment we do where try to guess the game that came out 10 years ago this week. The score, 9.2. Here we go. Any weird...
I'm always worried it's something that I wrote.
Oh, no. No, actually, here's a hint. Eric Wolpaw wrote this.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Portal Scribe. That's a stupid word. 9.2. In a weird inversion of the typical shooter model, this game features an amazing multiplayer component coupled with a good, if somewhat underwhelming, single-player game. Then again, fans of this studio's previous 3D shooters should be familiar with this model. But honestly, this game is well worth buying the multiplayer game alone, so the fact that you get a solid single-player game in the box can only be considered a bonus.
Tribes?
Nope, not
No?
Tribes.
Or Time Splitters is the only other thing I could think of.
Serious Sam 2?
No, bigger.
Wait, so 2001?
2001, end of the year, holiday ship.
Huh. Can you give us a platform?
Probably PC. That's what all shooters were for back then.
Oh gosh, that was here too.
Huge, massive franchise. Not so much anymore. They're probably more known for something along the lines of Rage.
Oh,
Well, that's too easy. So it was.
Okay, Quake
Quake
3
3.
Arena.
No, close.
Oh no, because Quake 3 was
Wolfenstein?
before 2001.
Wolfenstein. Castle.
Yeah, Castle
Wolfenstein.
Return to Castle
Return
Wolfenstein.
to Castle Wolfenstein.
Wow.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's software. I think it was
That was
just
cool multiplayer.
it was.
Yeah, that was great multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just found that thing he said about, I can't believe the multiplayer is better than the single player. That's like, the standard now. So I guess, attribute Castle Wolfenstein to that. Call of Duty, showing your roots. Come on. So let's take a question. Crunchy Flies asks, and this kind of ties into Don being here. I was wondering, in all of the different handhelds that have come out in history, which is your favorite, and what is your favorite game on that system?
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of broad.
Wait, sorry, repeat the question.
So what is your favorite handheld?
Oh, favorite handheld?
And then on that handheld, which is your favorite game that came out for that handheld?
Oh, boy.
I think for me, it's the Game Boy Color and the
Yeah.
version of Link's Awakening that was on there.
That was not bad.
Yeah, I think.
Donald's obviously his iPhone 4S.
No,
and
I would say
Infinity
no. Like for me, I was gonna say Game Boy Advance
Yeah.
because you could still play Link's Awakening on it.
That's right.
But you have like Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission. You have amazing Zelda games on there.
Mhm.
You can still play like Super Mario 3, and you got like Mario. I mean, so I don't know, Game Boy Advance. I mean, not that like the 3DS and stuff can't still play that. Well,
Right.
I don't know. Game Boy Advance is awesome,
Yeah.
and they had all the different iterations, like the micro and stuff.
Mhm.
That was cool.
Yeah, Micro is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm changing my answer.
You're gonna, okay, it's fair. It's fair. I'm gonna go with the DS and Advanced Wars.
Oh,
yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was cool.
Kevin, anything?
Well, the DS for me, probably for Animal Crossing.
Mhm.
Ooh.
No.
Yeah.
But that's just because, I'm the person that spent on the GameCube Animal Crossing, I actually spent a New Year's Eve at home specifically so I could do stuff in-game at the New Year.
Yeah. Animal Crossing is such a dark game. The more I read about it, like not actually read about it.
It's a social experiment, is what it is, more than a game.
I just love that April Fool's joke that Brendan did that one year of Tom Nook's pig farm, where it explained like all the missing disappearances of corpses and whatnot.
God,
Wow.
really
It
is
was-
dark.
I actually didn't.
That is grim stuff.
Yeah.
Animal Crossing fan fiction.
Yeah, pretty much. It's on the site. Go check it out. It's really funny. It's April Fool's, for Christ's sake. One more question. Boom slang.
Oh, I don't get to say mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's my bad.
Also, Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I would probably go with Final Fantasy Tactics for the Game Boy Advance.
That's a good one.
That's probably the one game I spent the most time with.
I thought you were going to say the Atari Lynx and California Games.
Yeah. Also fair.
I played California games on the Super Nintendo. Thank you very much.
Wasn't Final Fantasy Tactics like original PlayStation or something?
It was a Game Boy Advance version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm forgetting the full title of it, which is obviously how near and dear to my heart it is, but I
It's fair.
can't remember.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
One more question. Boom Slang X86 asks, when is Chair's next XBLA title? Hopefully Shadow Complex sequel. And in a related question, bundled with an exclamation, Isophoton asks, when do we get Shadow Complex 2? Take my money.
Shadow Complex is very near and dear to our hearts.
All right, that's good enough.
There will be more at some point.
Right. We are going to, let's see, what else we got? Okay, so we're going to do trivia. Actually, if you have a comment, question, correction, something or other, drop us a line, hotspot@gamespot.com. I will read it. And if it's worthwhile, I'll put it on the show. Go ahead, send it in. I don't care. Pop quiz hotspot. This is our trivia. And if, somebody wins trivia, I'm explaining this for Donald because... he doesn't listen to the show. Are you kidding me? They write in with a trivia, and if they stump our panel, then they win something that's relevant for the week and some useless junk we find lying around the office, which
Sell
we
it, Tom.
sign.
A glorious combination of the two.
Right. So here we go. Jeff Schultz riddles. It's not your companion, but it's shaped just as well. Bind items and defeat the minions of hell. Gaming-related NES era beyond. Think about it.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not your companion, but it's shaped just as well. Bind items and defeat the minions of hell. Keywords here.
Hell.
Hell.
I'm assuming Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the
It's the... Oh, man, I'm going to get the name
The
of it wrong.
Heradric
Yes,
Cube.
the
Heradric Cube. There we go. All right. Sorry, Andy Schultz. You lose.
Oh.
We have I keep going until somebody gets it right, by the way. Andy quizzes. What was the inspiration for the name Mario in Nintendo's classic mustachioed plumber?
I can. Does anybody else want?
Go for it.
So
Oh,
it was the
no.
name of the manager of the warehouse at
Yeah.
Nintendo of America.
Really?
His
know
first
that.
name was Mario, and they named it after him.
Very cool.
From Wikipedia, because that's where I get all of my news information. In 1981, Nintendo was renting out one of Mario Segal's warehouses to use as their American headquarters. The company struggled at first, but was preparing for a major breakthrough in the North American release of a new video game, Donkey Kong. According to a widely circulated story around this time, the company had gotten behind in a rent payment, prompting an angry visit from their landlord, Segal. After some heated words, Segal eventually accepted Nintendo of America president Minoru Arakawa, maybe?
Yeah.
It's pretty close.
Sure.
Promises that the rent would be paid soon and left. According to the story, Arakawa and the other developers subsequently immortalized Segal by renaming the star of Donkey Kong, previously known as Jumpman, to Mario.
See, that whole time I was imagining Steven Seagal coming
No,
to the warehouse and just leaving
That's
a whole bunch
actually-
of dead bodies behind.
That's exactly why I read this, because it's like Steven Seagal, owner of a warehouse, beating the crap out of Nintendo America. But such was not the case. All right, we got one more, and if this doesn't work, then I'll just pick somebody's random that I find in my inbox. AJ1 riddles. A trilogy within a trilogy, a past within a past, a lifetime within a fortnight, last to first to last.
Ooh.
That's tough.
Yeah.
One more time.
A trilogy within a trilogy, a past within a past, a lifetime within a fortnight, last to first to last.
Majora's Mask.
No.
No?
Oh, that's what my first thought
Oh.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trilogy within a trilogy.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky.
Recent installment. All right, he wins. He wins. Assassin's Creed.
I was gonna say Assassin's Creed. That was my next thing. But, well, that's
second
fine.
too late.
Yeah.
We need a winner so we can move on.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't get that.
I know. I had the
freaking
camera on
Assassin's
you the
Creed-
entire time.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I have an Assassin's Creed tattoo on my arm.
That's true.
For God's sake.
But no, AJ wins.
Jeez.
AJ
That's a good one.
lives in Israel, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to get him something.
Trilogy
I have
within
no
a
It's
idea.
gonna be a
trilogy.
expensive shipping.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Thank
true.
Leslie Moonvest for
But
that
what's
one.
the last to first to last part? Wasn't that a part of the riddle? Last to
Yeah.
first
Last to first to
Capital last, capital first, capital. I don't know. I just read it. I assume.
Well, I'm
makes
assuming
sense.
it's you're playing as like Des. I mean, like,
Desmond to
Des-
Altair to
yeah,
Desmond. Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's poetic.
AJ.
You're not supposed to
Oh, you know
understand
what? Altair to Ezio back to Altair. Is that what they're
That
doing?
could
Like
be.
free I don't know.
AJ,
Yeah.
give us an explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still
Altair's
won.
back
I
in
don't care if it
Revelations.
actually makes sense or not.
Wow,
but
I get,
whatever.
you're trying to give me a hint by putting me on the camera. I didn't even know.
That was all you. That's okay.
Wow.
It was a very subversive thing or subconscious thing. Anyway, I think you know some obscure gaming trivia from NES era and beyond. Write into us. Give us a riddle. You could do that too, or you can do what Greg from Guelph did last week, where he sent theme music and we had to pick whose theme music was. It was pretty good. Send that in, and if you stump us, I have no idea what what I'm going to give you this week. We'll figure that out later. But it'll be cool, probably.
My visitor's badge.
Yes, you
Yeah.
get Donald Mustard's visitor badge. We'll sign it for you. He'll sign it for you too, as I'm sure you always wanted.
Worst present ever.
No, we've actually had some pretty bad. I sent some dude a GameSpot branded energy drink once. It was returned to me, so
Oh,
he didn't
wow.
actually get it.
Oh.
I did my part.
Yeah, you did your due diligence.
Yeah. But no, we'll send you something. Anyway, we have some housekeeping. GameSpot has 2 new bosses. Giancarlo can now be called senior editor of pre-release content. I asked him earlier what his secret attack is, and it's horrible bitterness.
Yes.
He told me.
But you said the solution is
weaponized puppy dogs.
puppy dogs.
Yeah. So if you're looking to defeat him, bring your puppy
totally true.
dogs. Also, hey, look, Kevin Van Ord has been raised as senior editor of our release group. His secret attack is passive aggression. That, or he was just annoyed by my question, and that's the response I got. I'm not sure. Could have been passive.
No, passive aggressive people don't point out that they're being passive aggressive because therefore it's no longer passive aggressive.
I know, but it would have been very meta passive aggression.
That's true.
It would have been good. Anyway, let's see. To Melina from Argentina, you're beautiful with love, Martin. He asked for a shout out, so I gave it to him.
Right, Martin.
Way to go.
To our 2 listeners in Pakistan, you're beautiful, love, Martin. Also, sorry about that whole bombing thing. That was bullshit.
Tom.
Sorry on us. No, seriously, that was lame. Also, do you like more? Do you like the HotSpot? Do you like it? I don't know. Want more? GameSpot UK podcast or the OzSpot. For those pining for a longer hotspot, this is the best I can do for you. Go check them out. You can use a search engine that does not involve GameSpot, and you'll find it. I promise.
Can I use Dogpile?
Dogpile?
I just dogpiled that and came up with that.
Can I ask Jeeves it?
If I Alta Vista it, I'm sure the right thing will come up.
Any of those search engines will be better than GameSpot. I guarantee you. Anyway, that does it for this week. I'd like to thank Donald Mustard for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Infinity Blade 2 coming out Thursday. Go buy it. He'll be grateful, and you'll get
Yes.
more. So there you go.
And you'll love it. It's really
and
fun.
you'll love it. There you go. Giancarlo.
You're welcome, sir.
Sean McGinnis. Sean, say goodbye. I'm gonna cut this in later.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Kevin Van Ord.
I'm thankful you didn't do the Colonel Mustard joke.
I had that in here somewhere.
Thank you.
Oh, Colonel, I've never. What are you talking? I've never even heard that.
So
Never
apropos,
was.
no, this was the question as presented by Giancarlo Vianini, our new senior editor. Did you kill Professor Plum in the library with the
But you
candlestick?
have to read the second part.
What was the second part?
Second part, which is I'm sure he has never heard this
Oh,
joke before in his
right,
entire
right.
life.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Siri to tell me where to bury the bodies.
Keep on that. Anyway, that does it for us. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Hotspot out!